Welcome to Communication, Connection, Community, the Podcasters Podcast. This podcast takes a deep dive into modern-day communication strategies in the podcasting space. We chat with interesting people who make the podcasting and speaking spaces exciting and vibrant. We also dive into the podcasting community with news, updates, latest trends and topics from this ever-evolving space. So strap in. It's going to be one amazing ride. Let's dive into today's episode. And my guest today has been in the podcasting space for about 2017, 6 or 7 years it's going on. And you know what? She has a very interesting story as to how she got into the podcasting space. We're going to talk about that today. Melissa Llarena is a best-selling author, imagination coach, speaker, contributor to Forbes Women articles that have garnered over 4 million plus views, and the host of the Mom Founder Imagination Hub podcast. Featured guests include Gary Vee, Beth Comstock, Suzy, Batiz, David Meltzer, and hundreds of other unconventional thinkers as well. Melissa has been featured in the WSJ, Business Insider, Fox Business, CNN Money, the Huffington Post, and other publications. And she is a phenomenal person and has a great understanding of the podcasting space, as well as being a phenomenal host and a phenomenal guest as well. And she's sought after in that space. So we're so glad she's here today talking to us about her journey into podcasting. And I want to hear this Gary Vee story. Melissa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Carl. I am thrilled to be here. This is my international day trip, right? You're out there in Canada and I'm in the USA. Hello, hello.
Welcome to our international. It's funny how podcasts are global, but you think about it. Yeah, you're in the US, I'm in Canada. That makes it international, right? All of a sudden, we're having this international conversation.
Yep, going global.
And you've been in the podcasting space for, actually, let me ask the next question. What led you to podcasting? What was it that made you wake up one day and say, yes, podcasting?
Oh my goodness, Carl, I don't know what to say, but if you've never been dared before, I would say you're missing out. You are missing out. I remember there was one day I was cooking for my family, rice and beans. I have 3 little boys, and my husband's listening to a podcast conversation between James Altucher and Gary Vaynerchuk. And this was in 2017. And so I'm there, making food for my family as one does. And my husband heard Gary Vaynerchuk tell James Altucher, hey, if someone is listening to this episode, by the way, it was episode 260. Yes, I memorized it. And actually launches a podcast, I will be their guest number 4. And then James Altucher said, and I will be their guest number 5. And my husband tells me this, and he's like, Melissa, you have got to launch a podcast. Gary Vee will be on it. James Altucher will be on it, right? Almost like a guarantee. Well, yes, they are on the Mom Founder Imagination Hub. They're guest number 5 and they're guest number 10. However, it was not so simple. I mean, Carl, this is what I had to do and not neglect my kids. Please be aware they ate every single night, but every single night, mommy was at her computer typing out about 1,000 words a day on medium.com, how I wanted Gary Vee to give me some attention and be on my newly formed podcast. So that was over the course of about 100 days. For James Altucher, I had to go even another step forward. I went to his comedy club in New York City. And yes, that was my date with my husband. I was sat in the very front and he poked fun of me. And at the time it was Twitter. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, you poked fun of me. Now will you be on my podcast? And so it was. I mean, just wild. It was just so wild. It was not a walk in the park. Anyone listening that has a podcast, you know that it could feel intimidating to reach out to like fancy schmancy people. Well, it was. It still is, but there's a way to it. There's an approach. You've got to distinguish yourself.
That in itself is a phenomenal story. I think there are a lot of people who would say, yes, I'd love to have Gary Vee on my show. It's a pipe dream, right? There's a process to doing that. Kudos to you for kudos to your husband for saying, hey, you got to launch a podcast. You have to do this. And how did it feel though, going through that process? Was there ever any doubt? Was there some imposter syndrome? How was that? Did you have butterflies in your stomach thinking about, oh my goodness, what happens when I actually do get Gary Vee on my show?
That's the interesting thing. I've had clients who have asked me, oh my gosh, Melissa, like you looked so calm when you were interviewing Gary Vee. Like I have it on video as well. it's immortalized. And the answer to that is that 100-day sprint. I didn't know it was going to end on day 100. So I would say day 88 or so, I was really getting cold feet on this because I was like, okay, I was just lied to. Like, that's how I felt. I was like, Gary Vee lied. James Altucher lied. This is not what they said they would do. And I felt embarrassed as well because I had to tell every single person that I wanted to interview these individuals on my podcast. Because as I teach my clients, if you really want to get the attention of someone who is basically, inundated with requests, you really have to tell the world that you're trying to get the attention of this individual. For me, I was like, okay, it was an ego thing, right? It's like, if I don't get these individuals on my podcast, I'm going to be so mortified. All of that was running through my system. I remember I was basically like at this pool swimming lessons with my twins. I'm there and I'm just like, just overwhelmed with the smell of chlorine. And all of a sudden, I get a text message from a client who was actually doing something at a Foot Locker where Gary Vee was going to show up. Oh my goodness, unexpected. I had lost hope. Again, I said that was like about day 88, right? Which is not that bad because I really stuck with the hope for about 80 days. But 88 was like the point that I was just like, no return. And that was when I got the call, show up immediately at this Foot Locker in Midtown and interview him live. I'll make sure that you'll have an opportunity to ask him your questions. Absolutely, Carl. Anyone that's really thinking to themselves, oh, I want to get the approach of your dream client, whoever that might be. It could be someone that is like, I don't know, in the WNBA. I'm just going to give a shout out for women's sports. Whoever it is that you have on your heart, I would always say if you have a clear and clean intention, that's like step one to just like help you feel like distinguishable, first of all. Second of all, I would say really, figuring out something that other people are not doing. So right now, the world is online. People are hiding behind computers. So if you put yourself in the physical proximity of someone that you are inspired by, and you can do this because people do podcast tours, people do book tours, etc. Then again, that's another way for you to distinguish yourself and just be that much closer. Proximity does tend to matter. And then the other thing is when you make your ask, make it so simple and be so prepared. When I showed up at that Foot Locker, I had Gary Vee's book. I don't remember which one it was at the time. I don't know if it was Jab, Jab, Hook, or whatever, but I had his book with me. And honestly, on that Metro North train, which is a commuter train, I wrote like my 5 questions I was going to ask him. I was like, this is what I really, really, really want to know. And so I wrote down those 5 questions. And only because I had been writing for, again, about 100 days, did I feel almost kind of sort of justified for getting Gary Vee on my podcast. So imposter syndrome was not my top of mind thing. I was more like, oh my gosh, I will not embarrass myself. That was the thing that was driving me.
Wow, what a story. I think there's a creative thinking outside of the box thing here too, that because most people would think, okay, I'm going to start a podcast and Gary Vee said, oh, he'll be guest number 4. And I guess once I start a podcast, I'm going to reach out and see if he'll be guest number 4, as opposed to, as I said, the steps that you took that it seems so duh, if I could say that. It seems so simple what you did and the process that you took. But in the end, it's like not all of us would think to, and also put it out into the universe and let the universe figure out what is it you need to do to make that happen. Because I think we interfere with that all the time, right? We say, here's what I'm going to do, and here's the process I'm going to take. And the universe will say, wait a minute. Yes, but it's going to be a different route, right? Or it'll be a completely different journey. So I want to unpack some of this though, because you said clear and clean intention. I love that. I love the fact that, and I'm assuming that this is not only how you communicate this with your clients now, but this is probably what you put into every single episode as you're hosting your show now, clear and clean intention.
It's a really big piece of this puzzle. I don't know if it was like Oprah or maybe someone copied Oprah, but it's kind of like it's the motive, what's really behind that request. That is actually what you end up getting back. And so if you are trying to approach someone like, for example, Jordan Harbinger. So Harbinger, he was on my podcast as well. If you want to approach him, famous guy, etc., and you just want to approach him because you want something out of it, those intentions, whether it's the tone, whether it's in your text or the language or emoticons, whatever, however you communicate, they're going to come through. People are so savvy, you could almost like smell through a screen, if someone has something up their sleeves. Clean and clear intention is a big part of it. I remember a while ago when I was coaching a client who was trying to land like a dream marketing job or whatever. He was like, I'm hesitant to network with people. And that's a lot of what I do with my clients, mom founders specifically. I want them to network with people that might feel out of reach, but are the ultimate decision makers. And I was telling that client, I said, what holds you back from reaching out to, I don't know, the CMO of Netflix? And when I say go big, I really go big. And he was just like, well, I had once burned someone, like I ignored their request. And so there was like bad like sentiments and like some, I don't even know what to say, but the intentionality behind him reciprocating for someone else and him asking someone for help, it was just so dirty and just not right. And that stopped him from going after what he really wanted. So it's something that is a bit of an inside game because you know why you really want that star performer from the WNBA to be a guest on your podcast. But if you're sincere, if you've been tracking her career for like 5 years or something, and you're just like, her stats are amazing, I just want to like help her shine, like that's going to come through and it's going to make your efforts a lot more direct and a lot more potent because you're not going to hold yourself back. Like you really want to like celebrate that person and it comes through.
In some cases, the reason why we get it in our heads, it's either the fear of celebrity, as in, oh my goodness, I'm not as famous as they are. There's no way they're going to come on my show. So again, a bit of imposter syndrome, but more of the hierarchy of they're famous, I'm not, say no more, they're never going to be on my show. Is there a piece of that as well that sometimes comes into play, as well as not thinking outside of the box enough?
Carl, I love that question because here's something that I have noticed in the beginning, not Genesis in the beginning, but in the beginning, I remember I would be coaching individuals who have never left working for someone else. So in employment, you have job titles, right? I am VP. I can only talk to VPs. Or if you work for a consulting firm or an agency, I am at this level. My client conversations must only be with someone at the same level on the other side. Well, here's what happens when you own your own business. You end up opening up that door big time, and you can talk to someone at any level of an organization. Now, you must rise to the top. You have to be articulate. You have to be well versed, aware, and understand exactly what it is that you want to get out of that conversation and what you want to give back. So there's a different approach to it. But I think that intimidation that you just said is something that stems from having had a career, a history of being wrist slapped if you ever go above your job title. And when you're podcasting, again, if this is your platform, if you're podcasting for yourself, not for your employer, for example, then I would love to invite anyone listening to just imagine this idea. Anyone that's out there that's doing anything major, let's just imagine there's someone in their like 50s or someone in their 60s or whatever that's really cool, top of their game. Chances are in the 1980s, they liked the band The Flock of Seagulls. Okay. And just have that thought in your head and get the intimidation and the feeling all weird out of your mind and go for it. Like we're all humans. We put our pants one leg at a time for the most part, right? And I would say that hierarchy, oh, that person is above me in some sort of economic way, like it is a data point. I'm not going to say it's not. And that's going to mean they're going to have more gatekeepers, for example, unless you're like me and just completely ignore that, which is part of my process. Notice I never spoke to Gary Vee's assistant. Okay. And at the same time, it's just something that it's an adventure. It is such an adventure. And you could make podcasting your adventure. It could be that one space for you where you get to talk to whoever you want, and you don't have to tell anybody that you spoke to this person and you shouldn't have, or just don't publish it. I don't know if you feel that it didn't go so well. And that has its own things, but yeah, go for it.
I love that attitude. As a matter of fact, not in the podcasting space, but very similar journey where I have a speaking colleague and he was able to, oh my gosh, can't remember exactly when it was, but he got a testimonial from Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield is, everyone knows who Jack Canfield is, Chicken Soup for the Soul. And anyways, he's on stage, not Jack Canfield, but my colleague, he's on stage delivering a presentation on how to give a presentation. And Jack Canfield is sitting in the audience. And my colleague went up and shook his hand later, afterwards and said, "Hey, Jack, thank you so much for being here." And Jack said, "Oh, that was a great presentation on how to give a presentation." And my colleague said, "Jack, wait a minute," went and grabbed his phone, hit record and said, "Can you say exactly what you just said here and now?" Again, totally unscripted. It's not like he went through the publicist channels to get Jack Canfield to get a testimonial. It was in the moment. Oh my goodness, opportunity. And it sounds like that's what you've had too. I did want to talk about this other piece too that you had here, the simple ask. I think sometimes we overcomplicate it, even from the setting up the show part in the podcasting space. We complicate it. We complicate how we both go about getting guests. We complicate how many episodes do we need to have. We complicate everything. And then we overcomplicate what is it I'm really trying to ask of Gary Vee when I'm face to face with him or Jack Canfield to get that thing that's going to make him put him on my show. Simplify the ask. How challenging do you find that is though or the responses from the folks that you've worked with or even in your own gut? Any challenges that you've experienced in just sticking with that?
I'm thinking about Suzy Batiz right now. So she's the inventor of Poopery. And when it came to my interview of Suzy, at the time I was living in Australia and she was in Austin, in Texas, actually, which is kind of ironic because now I'm here. And with her, there was 1,000 things that I had to make very, very simple. The first one was she needed to know why I wanted her to be on my podcast. And because I had been looking at her on other people's podcasts, like Danica Patrick, I think she was on Tom Bilio, etc. I was, I had to be very clear with my language. I want you on my podcast because secretly we're twins and this is how. Like there was just, her history was just so parallel my own. And I have her in my book. She actually did like the little blurb at the front cover for Imagination. So that was one step, right? So first I had to say, okay, this is why I want you to be on my podcast. Super simply stated. Then when it came to the questions I would ask her, she wanted them up front. And we were going to have a conversation at 2 a.m. Australia time for me. At the time, she didn't know. So I had to polish those questions and have them be so simple that even if I was sleepless, which I was, I could just read them in the most simple, unconscious, but conscious manner, right? So it forced me to give her the questions ahead of time and then truly simplify the actual language that I was using. When it came to that conversation, the name of the game for her and for anyone that is a leader in the field and busy, you have to make it so simple for them to say yes, right? Simple. Like, I know what you're going to ask me. I know why you want me on your show. I know what I need to do if the technology, explodes, right? How to catch you, even if you're in Australia and I'm in the US. Every piece of this puzzle has to be simplified. The person can just easily hit yes. And the same approach goes in the work that I do with moms who have businesses. If you're trying to network with someone who is very busy, which that is what we all are at this point, it needs to be so simple for them to just hit reply and be like, yes, I will be there. And so that's the name of the game. So simplicity, also the questions that you ask. With the Suzy Batiz, that was really such a learning moment for me because I had to, because legit 2 a.m. is not my it's not my best time. And I'm a morning owl, but not that way. No, that's the opposite. Night owl, morning lark. No, I don't know. What do you say that?
Early bird, something
Early
like
bird.
that.
I am tripping on my words. Okay. So be better than me. Be clear. Be pithy. Yes, you have to simplify everything, every single point of contact with a guest for sure.
You mentioned a little piece there too about networking and the steps that you help your clients take. Do you find that actually, why is it that sometimes networking brings up anxiety? I just want to shift that narrative a little bit to have you speak on that because I know that's a lot of your focus too. What is it about the networking that people get anxious about?
It's kind of like exposure. It's almost like, those, I don't know if you've had those dreams, but I hear that a lot of people dream that they're going to go to school, they're going to go to the front of the class, and then, like, I don't even know, their skirt falls. Actually, that was one of the most embarrassing moments of my life in high school, but not in front of the class. But I digress. Point of the matter is, you just feel so vulnerable. It's like, what if this person ignores me? What if they say, "Who are you to reach out to me? I am fancy person." Which, in that case, why did you want to reach out to them anyway, right? But at the same time, it's almost like this awkwardness. Like, what if they say something and I cannot say something back that sounds intelligent? What if they catch me off guard? Which, by the way, fun fact, I would say as a podcaster with like 256 episodes, I have not been in that position where someone asks me something and I have like no idea what to say. Because I feel like this medium right here, Carl, and anyone listening, like, we are definitely in a good spot having this practice, right, of the audio language skills. But all of that to say, I think that's what it is. It's just like the uncertainty behind it. The uncertainty. Will they even respond or will I be ignored? So the anxiety is thinking about something that has yet to happen and often does not actually happen in that way. Will you be ignored sometimes? 100% if you're doing it right. If you're going after people that are the decision makers, the stakeholders, the fancy schmancy people, yeah, you will be ignored sometimes, but that's okay. Like, I haven't gotten an email yet, fingers crossed, knock on wood, where someone's like, "I hate you, Melissa. Oh my goodness, what did you do? You ruined my life." No, not really. Because obviously, like, the language has to be clear, right? Simple ask and complimentary, and kind of why am I reaching out? But the uncertainty gets people.
Gaze into your crystal ball. Well, maybe not gaze into your crystal ball, but let's just say today, it's at the recording of this episode. You've been podcasting for several years now. If you could flick a switch and start all over again, wave a magic wand, it's a fresh slate, no podcast yet. Knowing what you know now, what would you do differently, if anything?
This is going to sound so not sexy, but I think what I would have done is said to myself, okay, what are my KPIs? What will they be? Like, is it downloads? Does that really, really matter? Is it going to be my listen score? Like, just kind of like, what does success look like for me numerically? Only because at least I can track it. The whole, like, am I feeling good and having a fun time during the conversations? Like, yeah, I can track that sort of kind of. But I think, as with any sort of endeavor, because this is tied to my business, not just a hobby, I think it's important to have those fundamentals. It's like the guts of my business, right? I'm not saying I'm going to do a balance sheet and all, but I could since I have an MBA. But I think I would have done that. So, of course, it was exciting to get Gary Vaynerchuk. Of course, it was exciting to get James Altucher. But did that translate to long term listeners that are engaged? I can't say that that was the case. Instead, yes, it opened the door for me to have conversations with other fancy people, right? Because once you get one fancy person, then you could say, well, I already had this person, and you'll be in the company of. But I would say that is how I would have done it differently. So less about the artwork on my podcast or whatever, more about, okay, wait a minute. Let's just start putting some numbers down, or, metrics that I think I want to really focus on over 1 year, 2 years. I mean, and I've met people that have spreadsheets that are like phenomenal. Like, I bow down to any spreadsheet person listening right now, honestly. Maybe you could help me out, but that's what I would have done differently.
Not the answer I was expecting.
I know, boring, right?
Because you're right. Stats and metrics, they're not sexy at all. They just don't scream sexy at,
Not
at
yet.
any
You
given
could change
time.
that.
Not yet. Not yet. Let's put it that way. But what's interesting though is, and I'll throw some caution in here because yes, that would be top of mind for you. But one of the challenges I think a lot of newbie podcasters have is they want to stand on the scale every day and see if they've lost a pound, not recognizing that, okay, well, I'm only at episode 4. And if I have 50 million listeners by then, it's probably because, or viewers, it's because of something I've done up to this point. It's not because I'm an award-winning podcaster instantly overnight. There's usually a process or some steps you take to get to that point. But I definitely think that at some point, looking at the metrics, or as you indicated, having a goal, I think that's what it boils down to, is having a goal or knowing your, and I've said this several times on the show, is knowing your why. What is it you're looking to accomplish? What's the goal? What's the end result you're looking for? And how do you want to achieve that? How do you want to attack that when you're on the microphone?
I totally agree. And it's so funny because just today I weighed myself and I lost 2 pounds. Yay, me. No joke, not even joking. So perfect timing. So, no, you wouldn't want to look at your downloads every single day, for example. However, what did help me was that I got myself one of those pedometer things, step thingamajigs, and I've been consistent over 10,000 for 18 days and steps, that is. And so, from a podcasting perspective, that spreadsheet lady that I'm talking about up front, what you can just say to yourself is, okay, every Tuesday, I shall release a podcast. And that could be your goal every Tuesday for the next 365 days. And that's totally suitable. But just having something that gets you focused on like seeing numbers change for me was inspiring. And I consider myself to be more like creative, but I don't know. That's my real gut, but not gut instinct, my data informed instinct.
It's like watching the stock market, though, go up and down, up and down, up and down. If you're saving for retirement and you've got 30 years to go or even 20 years to go and you're watching what it's doing today, it's just too much of a distraction from what you really need to be focusing on. And I think the main message there. So thank you so much for sharing that. Oh my goodness, Melissa, we could cover so much ground, but I want to give us an opportunity for you to share. I know you have a gift or something you want to pass along to our audience today. So share with us what that is.
If you guys go to bit.ly, so bit.ly/imagine a plan. What I did was I put together an anti-burnout action tracker and planner. So I know right now we're at the end almost of the year. However, whenever you listen to this, chances are you're going to have a goal and you're going to have 30 days that you could really focus on what are the drivers, right? And figure out what you need to do every single day. So I have a free planner for you. Just take the next 30 days, think to yourself, what is it that I can do to accomplish my goal? It could be producing the podcast, it could be getting more downloads, it could be whatever it is that your heart's desire. But the best part about the planner is that I also force you to fill your cup at the same time. So for as much as we're tracking outbound energy, I want you to track inbound energy as well. And so that's what I help my mom clients do. So a lot of moms, we're really great at getting a lot of things done, productivity, etc. And that's wonderful. And that is outbound. But we need to be just as good in terms of pouring back into ourselves. So I have you actually do that over a 30-day period in that planner that is totally free right there on that URL that I shared. The other thing I wanted to just say, I have a book. It was a #1 Amazon bestseller called Fertile Imagination, a guide for stretching every mom's superpower for maximum impact. And what I did relevant to the chat right now, I actually included the conversations and behind the scenes behind the Gary V story, behind my Suzy Batiz conversation, and a lot of my podcast guests. But I also share my perspective that is totally no BS, New York, savvy, and direct for moms who like to understand the reality of what it has taken to build my podcast, build my business, and have 3 little boys. So you can grab a free chapter. Just go to fertileideas.com. And yeah, I would love to have anyone also, while you're listening, just go to Mom Founder Imagination Hub, my podcast. It'll be on the same exact platform that this podcast is on. Hit follow, and I will be your best friend.
Melissa, I love it. Thank you so much for your generosity. And we'll make sure that all of that information, of course, lands in the show notes for people to easily access after today. Oh my goodness. I appreciate your time today, Melissa. It's been a phenomenal conversation, just getting to know you and hearing your passion, your journey, your story, the story of Gary Vee specifically. But everything has been just amazing today. So before I turn you loose, I want to make sure I give you enough time for the final thought.
I would say this whole idea of anyone is beyond your reach, it's overrated. Like it really is. When you see someone on TV, I encourage you, if they really spark an idea or leave you kind of inspired, reach out to them on any social media platform and just tell them, like, you're really cool. And I promise you, if nothing, it'll go back to you because I believe in karma. So don't feel intimidated by anyone, including me. You can reach out to me as well. I'm on social media too.
And as you heard, Melissa is very easy to chat with, and it's been a great conversation today. Melissa Llarena, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Carl. Bye, everyone.
And hey, thank you for being a part of the show today. So glad you could join us. Believe it or not, I can't work this magic by myself. So thanks to my amazing team, our audio engineer, Dom Carillio, our sonic branding genius, Kenton Dilborowski, and the person who works the arms, all of our arms actually, our project manager and my trusty assistant, Jilabel Tiongo, known to us here simply as July. If you like what you heard today, let us know. You can leave us a comment or review or even send us a voice note. And if you really liked it, we hope you'll share it with your friends and your colleagues. If you don't like what you heard today, well, please feel free to share it with your enemies. And if you know of someone who would make a great guest on the show, let us know about it. You can get in touch with us by going to our show notes where all of our connection points are there, including the links to our website, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. And if you're ready to be a guest on podcasts or even start your own show, let's have a conversation. We'll show you the simplest way to get into the podcasting space and rock it. Because, after all, we're Podcast Solutions Made Simple. Catch you again next time.